Everything that you know about gladiators is wrong. Gladiators have been in the public eye for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and it seems that every single time that they're depicted, it's wrong. So we're going to go through the history of gladiators, the different types of gladiators, how we can identify them, how they're dressed, what their armor is, how they fight, and try to clear up some misconceptions so that the next time you see a movie or television show or a painting with Gladiator in it, you can point out to your friends and family, to their utter astonishment, how wrong it is. First thing is that it's not a Roman invention. Gladiatorial games originated in a kingdom north of the city of Rome called Etruria. We still call that area Tuscany now. So back when Rome was not an empire, but just a single city, the major power in the area were the Etrurians and the Greeks in the south. And even the last few kings of Rome were from Etruria. So back in the 500 BCs, right before it turned into a republic. So gladiatorial games originated in Etruria not as entertainment for the masses, but as part of funeral games for the kings. Throw the discus and watch people kill each other. Have a feast, watch more people kill each other. Fun times at the funeral games. When Rome adopted it, that's how they brought it in and turned it into more of a spectacle for the common people. Originally, the first gladiators were prisoners of war, right? So slaves. Not surprising. And they were given the type of armor that was typical of where they came from. So what are some of the different types of gladiators? The most common one, and the one that you probably can conjure up in your head, is this guy. He's actually called a murmillo because his helmet actually has a huge fin. They have a padded arm. Lots of paintings will show it with a metal arm guard, but honestly, the quilted manica was just as tough as metal, honestly. They had a short sword, they had the gladius, a large shield called scutum, and they did have some foot protection. But notice their midsection is pretty open. There's another version of the murmillo called the secutor, and you can see he's very similar. So the helmet is smoother and not as easy to be caught by a particular thing. Both of those guys would fight against the retiarius, or the net fighter. That big fin shape is a perfect spot to be caught by a net. And he wouldn't just fight with a net, you can see he's got a trident as well. The retiarii are light fighters. They don't have a whole lot weighing them down, so they can move about a lot faster and fight against the murmillos, who have a lot of armor and are slower. So a good match. Another variant is called the hoplomachus, which is a Greek word for a type of warrior. Hoplite is a Greek warrior that carried a spear and a shield. They have a small shield, more like a buckler. They do have a short sword with them. So you can see the bottom half of them is pretty well guarded. This is the Thracian, or the Thrax. The Thracians are a culture of people who lived in northern Greece. They have a curved sword. They've got lower leg protection, arm protection. The helmet is very iconic because it's big and floofy with big feathers on it. Those 5 are the most common, but there were other types as well. Some gladiatorial promoters would call for certain different types. Perhaps they would want people on horseback to fight, or even chariots. Trained hunters were a big thing, where they would go against animals. Instead of killing the animals, sometimes they would do tricks with them, to the astonishment of the people. There are lots of different smaller types that were more specialized and not as common. So here's the first misconception. If you see a movie with gladiators, for instance, perhaps the movie Gladiator, it seems like a free-for-all. People are just stabbing each other and killing each other, but that's not the case. There were rules. Each gladiator belonged to a school of gladiators. They were trained by a person called a linista, who was probably a gladiator himself at one point in time. They were trained to adhere to the strict rules of the combat sport. Every sport has rules. There's no reason that gladiatorial fighting should be any different. MMA has rules. So there's a referee to enforce those rules. Also, probably a gladiator at some point in his history. The referee is called a rudis. First rule: you can't kill anybody. There were some times where gladiatorial fights were fights to the death, but that was very rare. It's uncommon for gladiatorial games to end in death. Also, don't injure your opponents. This is about the skill of fighting, about the clash of the swords and the aerobics and the endurance of these fighters. It's not about the blood. Gladiatorial games were not blood sports, unless you're an animal, in which case you totally were killed. You would not last as a successful gladiator if you injured your opponents. You would be cut from the team and sold off as a slave to go work in the mines or something. Gladiators are expensive. They're slaves, and they're expensive slaves. Gladiators were the heroes, the sports heroes of the day. They became very famous. Some even were able to endorse certain products. So they were treated very well. Many of them ended their careers as freedmen and not as corpses. Here's another crazy little factoid, is that lots of gladiators were not slaves, where they were actually free citizens who volunteered to go into bondage, into servitude of the Lanista. For this fame, they wanted a taste of the action and a taste of this fame and of the money that they could earn. That being said, they had to, whether they were slaves or whether they were free citizens, no matter who they were, when they entered into the service of the gladiatorial school, there was an oath. It was uri vinciri verbarare feroque necari. I will endure to be burned, to be bound, to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword. They had to swear that oath, even though it was very unlikely that would actually happen. The last myth that I need to address is the myth of the thumb. We give thumbs up and thumbs down, meaning something good and something bad. There's a story that this goes back to Roman times, where the thumbs up would be a sign of life and the thumbs down would be of death, but that's probably not true. Could the emperor or could the sponsor, could they be swayed? Sure, I suppose so. But the thumbs up, thumbs down thing, well, that all comes from this picture right here by Jean-Léon Gérôme, who gives us these images of the Roman people with their thumbs down, as we see the man begging for mercy on the ground. So critics have interpreted this, and people in the audience want the gladiator to kill him, but there's really nothing in there that says that they want him dead. They don't particularly look angry. It's most likely the opposite. The Latin doesn't really give us anything. There's the pollice verso, which just means a turned thumb. Doesn't mean turned up, turned down, and there's more evidence, literary evidence, that it actually means the opposite. The thumbs down meant put your sword down, as in give him life. Thumbs up, or maybe slashing the thumb in a cross motion, would be like cut his throat. So, not true. Another misconception. I'm sorry to have ruined your outlook on gladiators, but now that we know a little bit of fact, I'm going to leave a link in the description. I'll even try putting a title card up in the corner to a secondary source. Adam Ruins Everything. And it's about gladiators. They go through a lot of things that I just went through, but in a much more entertaining way. Now that you know a little bit more about them, when we're reading about gladiators in class, I can keep all of this in mind. Bye.